playing one Sigarda, Host of Herons. And Spencer's deck is actually interesting because he has 2 copies of the new Dragon Maze card, Varal's the Scar Stripe. Now, and I like that card. It's a Golgari card, green, black, and a colorless. We can bring it up on the screen for you in a bit, but it's basically a 3-mana 2/2. All his creatures in his graveyard gain Scavenge for their casting cost. It's also another sacrifice effect. So if you have cards like Mark of Mutiny in your sideboard, it's a similar effect to sort of like what Aristocrats Act 2 does, where you can steal creatures and sack them.
We see a Cackler, the first action of the match from Spencer Stout. Now, the Rakdos Cackler, amongst the many 1-drops in here, including Experiment 1, and wow, I thought that there was actually another one. I read Mog Flunkies as Mog Fanatic, but I don't even think Mog Fanatic is legal right now.
It looks like Experiment 1 and Cacklers, that's it. And again,
that's it.
A little greedy there, because you can't cast, it's hard to cast those 1-drops when they're different colors, but Voice of Resurgence comes down for Blake, a great blocker against Rakdos Cackler, but a Dreadbore deals with it, so Blake will get a 1/1 token, or elemental token that is a 1/1 right now, and the Rakdos Cackler is able to attack through. But pretty good shape for Blake, though, because he's gaining some value from that Voice of Resurgence.
All that time, jeez.
Yeah, granted, he's taken 2 damage, but that elemental token's still out there, and it looks like he has at least a Loxodon Smiter in his hand, which can come down.
I mean, yeah, it was a million years ago. It was in the first printing of Magic that they made Keldon Warlord, but they did make it cost 4 mana. You know, here you get a XX creature as like a side benefit from a 2-mana guy.
Yeah. So we have a token there to represent the fact that the elemental is just a 2/2. There aren't 2+1/+1 counters on it. The Voice of Resurgence elemental token is obviously a XX star creature for the equal to the number of powers, for an equal number of creatures that you have in play. So currently it is a 2/2. He decides to attack with it as opposed to leave it back for a blocker, which is interesting.
Experiment 1 is joining the team for Spencer Stout, and I think we might be seeing a Burning Tree Emissary.
And here we go. It's a very good draw because he has a Fluent of Boar as well. So Experiment 1 is going to get pounded up to a 3/3, and Rakdos Cackler is going to come in for another 2.
Experiment 1 doing a very good Wild Nacatl impression.
And let's see if Blake didn't have a 3rd land last turn, so he couldn't cast the Loxodon Smiter in his hand. He does draw a Breeding Pool now, so he has a choice between another Voice of Resurgence or a Loxodon Smiter here.
I mean, both of those plays would be excellent in this situation.
Yeah, I'm not sure which is better right here. Definitely don't like the Geist of Saint Trap, so I hope he moves that to the back. But it looks like we might have a
Smite
come down. No, so Smiter does come down. So I like that play because he can play his Breeding Pool now tapped, and next turn if he chooses, he can play the Voice of Resurgence. It's even better if he draws another land because then he can go Unflinching Courage and another Voice of Resurgence, putting him firmly in the driver's seat. So for now, he has to dodge basically another Dreadbore from Spencer, because Dreadbore would deal with the Loxodon Smiter and also knock the Elemental down to a 2/2. But it looks like Spencer has a Gorklan Rampager, which is going to be very good right here.
If you look at the board, Spencer brings it all in 3, 6, 8, 10 power worth of attackers.
Yeah, so this is great because, granted, Spencer is going to lose one of his creatures, but he's going to be able to Rampage over the Loxodon Smiter, which will ultimately end up killing the Elemental token because Loxodon Smiter dies, token becomes a 2/2, and it's taking 2 damage from the Rakdos Cackler. So pretty favorable attack there for Spencer.
That is the power right there of the Gorklan Rampager. It's just such an amazing card.
Yeah, and it looks like Spencer does have the Dreadbore in his hand, and he didn't. He decided to go for the Rampager plan instead. And I kind of like that because he must think one of my only ways to lose here is my opponent just plays a Unflinching Courage on the Avacyn Pilgrim as a blocker or something.
We see the Voice number 2 that we were talking about earlier come down.
So it looks like we have a Sigarda, that one lonely Sigarda in his hand. We have a Rancor as well. Rancor might come down on the Voice to give it a little added beef so it can actually trade with Experiment 1 now if it chooses. So does he have the Dreadboard? Oh no, that was actually Dragon's Skull Summit. So, although it looks like he drew a non-land card, either a Golgari Dreadmangler maybe. Yeah, it looks like it's a Dreadmangler, or no, maybe it's a
Varolz.
Vraska. That would be great. That would be an amazing draw.
He did look at his graveyard.
Yeah, because Rampager basically is like a 4-mana, 4 tokens on the creature because of the scavenge, and he has a Cackler, so he can make his Experiment 1 a 3/3, have it 3+1/+1 counters on it, so he can actually put a Regeneration Shield on it. Yep. So it looks like that a little glare on that card, but yep, it definitely is a Vraska because he's removing a Rakdos Cackler to put another counter on his Experiment 1 here. So all the creatures are coming in. Voice of Resurgence here can probably just block the Flinthoof Boar, because if he blocks the Experiment 1, Spencer can just remove 2 counters to put a Regeneration Shield on it and still trade with the Voice of Resurgence. So I like this play here. He's going to trade with the Flinthoof Boar, and he chump blocks the Experiment 1, and he takes 2 from the Burning Tree Emissary. Or did he not chump? Maybe he didn't chump there.
Blake Wyatt down to 2 life, facing a Burning Tree Emissary, a 4/4 Experiment 1, and a Varolz the Scar Striped.
So does he have Unflinching Courage and Rancor in his hand? No, game 6 life, 5. No, that's not enough, because Vraska's ability is going to play a major role next turn in removing that Gore Clan Rampager.
I mean, one of the other things, too, is that that troll of his, he can use it to sacrifice any creature that would have lifelink blocking it, you know, so...
Yeah, so whatever creature he does block with the Unflinched Courage creature, he can just sack it. So, yep, looks
There's
like
the Courage.
Unflinching Courage come down. And I think he still attacks here, right? Because he still has a chump blocker back, so if he gains 8 life here, can Vraska
Varolz...
sacrifice another creature? So Varolz cannot sacrifice itself.
Right. And the other thing, too, is that the trample, if he's blocking, Spencer can't stop the trample from helping out. So he's going to have to suck that damage and have Blake get the life.
Definitely right to attack there. Goes up to 8. What does Spencer draw here? Can't see it. So he can, if he has a land, he can remove the Rampager and the Flinthoof Boar to put 7 tokens on, 3 tokens on one creature, 4 tokens on another creature, if he chooses. With Blake at 8, and he has 1 blocker, looks like it might be enough here. 4, 5, 6. If he drew a land, I think it's enough. It looks like it's just a Rakdos Cackler. So he's going to have to basically just put 4 tokens on one creature and attack with everything. Probably put it on the Burning Tree Emissary and then unleash your Cackler.
For those of you who are just joining us, I'm Adrian Sullivan here with Osip Lebedovich, and we're watching Blake Wyatt versus Spencer Stout here in the first game of this round 6.
So choose to put it on the Vraska instead. Vraska's going to get chump blocked, and Varolz rather. Varolz. Sorry about keep calling it Vraska. It's the only Golgari gold rare that I ever see him play. So Varolz gets chump blocked, and Blake ends up taking 6 damage, dropping to 2, and the elemental becomes a 1/1. Spencer plays the Cackler not leashed rather. And it looks like we're going to have maybe a Geist of St. Traft come down here.
One of the awesome things about the Bant Hexproof list is being able to give creatures lifelink is shockingly good if they're huge. Like Geist.
Yeah, so Geist comes down. He can attack for 6 again, dropping Spencer to 8. But does he have enough to chump block though? I don't think he has enough to chump block. He might have to pass the turn back here.
And Spencer's like, here you go.
Yeah, if he attacks and tries to gain 6 life here, Spencer can just attack back, and he'll be able to scavenge the Flinthoof Boar on another creature and then just attack for lethal. So
He says go, and now remember, Verolls can sacrifice whatever is blocked by the lifelinker, so that should be it, unless there's a fog hiding in Blake Wyatt's hand.
So yeah, as long as Spencer attacks with all the creatures here, should be enough. Or no, I believe if Blake blocks Verolls.
Verolls can't sacrifice itself.
Yeah, so if he has to block Verolls. Oh wow!
He's making Verolls a big man.
So he's making.
I've never seen Verolls so big.
Wow.
That is a 9/9 Verolls.
So this is a really aggressive play by Spencer. So let's see here. Oh, he's gonna have to block 4, 5, 6, 7. So Blake could choose not to block with the Geisting Trap and just block the Verolls. He'll gain 6, bringing up to 8, and take 7 because the Rakdos Cackler isn't leashed. It's Well, I wish I saw that before going through all the math. Yeah, if Spencer didn't have that Rampager, Blake would have had the out of not blocking with the Geist, and then the Rancor would have came back to his hand. If he drew a Spectral Flight or any other enchantment.
Any other +2.
It would have been enough.
Yeah. And there actually would have been quite a few options for that. Every single...
any one of the enchantments, even a Simic Charm does it.
Wow, that was an exciting game one, honestly.
Pretty exciting game. Blake didn't really get anything going early on. He did have the unflinching courage, but a little too late to the party. Spencer had a pretty good start. He had the Dreadbore, and he drew 2 Rampagers, which, if you draw 2 Rampagers, that was like drawing 2 Shrapnel Blasts with Affinity back in the day. It's just so much damage, you know?
Nice. 2 Shrapnel Blasts is always... It's like 2 Shrapnel Blasts, 2 Fire Blasts.
Yeah, any of the...
These days, the Price of Progress and Legacy, you know, like...
Rampager is just so good.
Yeah. Going to the sideboard, Spencer Stout wins game 1, so he's got a little bit more breathing room. I think one of the things we might see from him is Golgari Charm, which can be really, really monstrous when you, say, take out a Spectral Flight or take out an Unflinching Courage that the person didn't expect to have go away.
Yeah, definitely. Beyond that, though, what else is he really bringing in?
I mean, he could also... gosh, honestly, that's one of the only things. Kessig Wolfrun is a reasonable card. Olivia is a flyer for 4, and you can use it to ping Arbor Elf from them, or I should say Avacyn's Pilgrim from them, or ping your own things just to make it a bigger flyer.
Yeah, I actually like Olivia. They're not always going to have a Geist or an Invisible Stalker like we saw in that game.
Yeah.
In the games where they don't have many answers to Olivia. So, yeah, I definitely like the Olivia, especially if you can just steal a pantsed-up guy. It's usually the matter. It can be pretty much game there. From Blake's side of things, he has 2 near Heath Pilgrims, which I expect to come in, along with 2 Pacifisms and 2 Detention Spheres. Beyond that, I don't really know if he wants to bring in anything else. I'd say those 6. He's got 1 Ready to Willing, 2 Nevermore, 2 Silverblade Paladin, 1 Negate, 1 Render Silence, and 2 Ground Seals. Those aren't really too exciting in this matchup. I would expect the Pilgrims, the Pacifists, and the Detention Spheres to probably come in. In this matchup, I don't love Rancor, just because it doesn't really do that much. I mean, it's not the enchantment that matters the most. Spectral Flight and Unflinching Courage are probably the 2 most important enchantments in your deck. Ethereal Armor at least gives your guy first strike. Rancor, the Trample can be effective, but again, you already have Unflinching Courage. You really need to try to just win these races by gaining life. I think that the Sigarda probably doesn't need to be in the deck anymore. And if we're boarding out 1 more card, maybe I'd board out 1 Ethereal Armor, perhaps. I think Simic Charm's fine because it can at least bounce cards. So I'd expect, again, I think this matchup it's pretty much a race. Rancor is a reasonable card, but I think of all the cards in your deck, it's probably the weakest.
One of the things about Rancor in a race like this is that you actually, even with a Rancor, might not be the aggressor. And as a result, I mean, just having a card like Pacifism, that can actually make it so that you're also helping out on the race. Yeah,
and again, Rancor, Ethereal Armor obviously works better with Pacifism and Detention Sphere since you're coming in, because it can be even larger than a Rancor at times. But the fact that it can play defense too with the first strike, and not worry about like any trample, perhaps. So yeah, I'd expect maybe shaving some of the Rancors and Ethereal Armor and a Sigarda host for those 6 cards. And see how good Pilgrim can really be. Because I know when I was talking to Mike Flores about this deck, he played at the Somerset Open. He was a big fan of the deck, really liked it. One loss away from top 8. He said Pilgrim was by far his best card against any aggressive decks. Because it all comes down to those life swings.
One of the things about the Near Heath Pilgrim is it's got a fragile body, and it will usually die, but not before it did one little burst of work. And then the thing is in the act of killing it, that time that it takes from your opponent can be a huge deal too. Both of those things, the life gain plus the time it takes to kill it, right there can very, very easily end up being a very big swing in terms of the tempo of a game.
Yeah, and you know, what if they might not always have a way to kill it? You know, there's not that many. They usually don't board into more removal spells against banned hexproof. So it's usually down to the 5 or 6 they have in their main deck. And sometimes they'll be forced to use it on, maybe they'll waste a Pillar of Flame on an Avacyn Pilgrim, and then you go turn 2 Voice of Resurgence, turn 3 Pilgrim, and then suddenly you've got this really, really great threat in play. But Blake is going down to 6 cards here. It looks like Spencer is comfortable with his 7. Let's see if Blake is happy. So looks like we're going to see a match going their way. Turn 1 Hollow Fountain from Blake. Ooh. It looks like we have double Rakdos Cackler. Coming out swinging. Turn 1 Rakdos Cackler off a Stomping Ground. Looks like it looks like we have a couple of creatures. We have an Invisible Pilgrim. We also have a Geist Saint Traft, and one other card that looks like a non-land card. Might be an Ethereal Armor. Can't quite make it out yet.
In for 2 with the Cackler. Is that a Mog Flunky? It looks like an old school Mog
looks
Flunky.
Like we got some old school Mog Flunkies coming to play. Gotta love Mog Flunky. Gotta love Mog Flunky.
Oh, that's a lot of them too. And those are all Stronghold, it looked like to me. Oh, man.
You gotta love it when Mog Flunky makes an appearance again in the format.
Is that Asian Mog Flunky?
Of course. Of course it's Asian Mog Flunky. Why wouldn't it be? So Geist Saint Traft comes down, and Invisible Stalker swinging over. So unfortunately, we could only show you the M13 Mog Flunky, but thankfully it is the same artwork as the Stronghold Mog Flunky. So Spencer looks like he might be a little stuck on mana here.
Lays a Boar so that he can actually block the Geist should nothing go wrong.
Yes. we definitely see a Ethereal Armor in his hand, so looks like Ethereal Armor could come down right here.
Spencer tapped out, F6.
So I wouldn't be surprised if we just see an Ethereal Armor on the Geist and everything comes in, but again, is this enough, you know? Spencer has a lot of creatures in play, and Blake is already at 13, so attacks over for 8. Next turn, potentially lethal, but he's going to have at least, he can chump block.
He goes in with both. And we see 9 points of damage coming on in, 4 of it blockable.
And
Pardon me, 3 of it blockable.
And it's funny.
It's 8, my bad.
It shows you just how close these games can be. One turn where you gain 4 life or 5 life can be the difference. Spencer basically needs to that token should be gone. So Spencer just needs to be able to chump block that Geist for 1 turn and have Blake brick on an enchantment or a pump spell or something, or a bounce spell.
And Blake could have access with his mana. He could have access to a Simic Charm in hand. He's got a green and a blue open, so that's a possibility. Spencer doing some math. Spencer has 8 power in play.
And he still doesn't have a 3rd mana. So yeah, oh wow, she's just attack for 5. So drops Blake down to 8, plays another Flint of 4, passes the turn back.
And Blake does nothing at the end of the turn.
Planning to double block that Geist. And we have another Geist of Saint Traft coming into Blake's hand. Not sure what else Blake has. Blake planning just to attack Spencer down to 2. and play another Geist Saint Trap, but that probably won't be enough. He can chump block that turn. So yeah, looks like he's trying to keep back that Geist Saint Trap.
In for lethal. They both block. First strike one. The surviving one finishes off the Geist. Spencer drops to 3.
So we're gonna see. Oh, it looks like he has a Voice Resurgence. So we're gonna see. Are we gonna see the Geist come down here or the Voice? I think his plan was to try to win with the Geist next turn. So I'd expect the Geist to come down. But does he? No.
Voice plus mana open.
So interesting. Maybe he's. Oh wow. Gorklan Rampager to the rescue. I think that might be enough.
Spencer still has to worry about Simic Charm, but it would have felt like Blake would have Simic Charmed at the end of the last turn if he had it in his hand.
I don't think Spencer has to worry about anything. I think if he had the Simic Charm, he definitely would have used it last turn to deal with the other Flintiff board and save your Geist. Because then you could have also cast a Voice of Resurgence anyway. So I think he's okay to. He's probably comfortable to just go for the kill here with Gorklan Rampager.
And Blake blocks and blocks.
So if he rampages 6,
that's the kill if nothing happens.
Yep, rampage the Flunkies, trample over for 7, and that is it. Not much Blake can do there. I mean, maybe if he. Either way, Spencer drew the Gorklan Rampager, so I don't think there was a different play he could have made, really. But yeah, it was close. It shows you just how important those turns are.
Yeah.
And how great, even though Pilgrim is a 1 toughness creature invulnerable, just gaining life 1 turn is usually the difference between winning and losing.
I mean, right there with that block, Spencer did exactly enough to go hit Blake to 0. So, I mean, as you were saying, like a Pilgrim, a near Heath Pilgrim, would have been a very, very big swing.
Yeah.
Just even once, even it triggering
Yeah,
once.
just 1 trigger, because you can usually do enough damage. Even there, if Blake dropped Spencer down to 3, if he played another Geist and he had some sort of life gain effect,